Christmas Eve encounters with strangers you'll regret hearing in the dark. The Man in the Red Hoodie. It happened on Christmas Eve, 2012, the first year I didn't go home for the holidays. I was living in a tiny studio apartment in Portland, working retail, too broke for a flight back to Ohio. That night, I ordered cheap Chinese takeout and queued up Home Alone. I had a couple string lights taped around my window and a sad little tree I found in the clearance bin at Walgreens. It was quiet, kind of lonely, but peaceful. Around 10:30 p.m., just as Kevin was setting his booby traps, I heard someone knock. Not at my door, but on the building's main glass entry downstairs. It was a steady, soft knock, almost polite, like they were waiting for someone specific. I got up and peeked through the blinds. A man was standing there between the two entry doors. He faced the interior, holding something in both hands. A small square package wrapped in red paper. He was wearing a red hoodie pulled tight around his face, but it wasn't festive. It looked old, damp from snow. At first, I thought maybe he was a delivery guy, but he didn't look at the mailboxes or check a clipboard. He just stood there, still. Then my phone buzzed. A neighbor group text. "Anyone else seeing this guy? He's been knocking for like 10 minutes. I replied, "I see him. I thought he was a delivery guy." Someone else responded. I asked through the intercom who he was here for. He didn't answer. I watched a little longer, then ducked away when he turned his head slightly, like he was scanning for movement. When I looked back a few seconds later, he was gone. I figured that was the end of it, probably just some confused courier or someone visiting the wrong building. Until 11:45. I got up to brush my teeth before bed, and when I opened my front door to throw out the trash, I noticed something strange. A ribbon, bright red, tied neatly around my doorknob in a bow. No note, just the ribbon. At first, I thought maybe it was from one of my neighbors, a weird holiday joke. Maybe. I texted the group chat again. "Anyone leave a ribbon on my door?" Silence. Then, "Wait, I have one too. Me 3, second floor." The timestamps were all within minutes of each other. That was when I noticed something else. The package, the one from earlier, it was sitting in the middle of the hallway, halfway between our doors, just resting there. It was still perfectly wrapped. No tag, no tape, just a red box with a black bow. I didn't touch it. I went back inside and locked the door, twice. When I checked again in the morning, the package was gone. So were the ribbons, like it never happened. I called the building management and asked to check the security footage. They said the system had a temporary malfunction between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. Just stopped recording. Convenient, right? I asked them if anyone came in during that window, but the entry logs didn't show anything. No fob entries, no one buzzed up, which didn't make sense. Our building locks automatically from the outside. You need a code or a key to get in, unless someone already lived there or found another way in. I eventually ended up moving out by June when my lease was up. But even now, every Christmas Eve, I check my front door before bed. I still flinch a little when I hear knocking, even if it's just the neighbors upstairs. I never found out who he was or what was inside that box, but every now and then, I think about how many people he left the ribbons for, and what it meant. And did someone take and open the package? Those are questions I still don't have answers to and still think about. All I can say is, if you've ever had something left at your door that you didn't order, you'll understand why I don't celebrate Christmas like I used to anymore. Crashed in the snow. Back in 2014, I was driving home alone on Christmas Eve. It was just after 8 p.m., already dark, and snow was coming down harder than the forecast said it would. Thick flakes, the kind that swallows your headlights and makes the road feel smaller than it actually is. The stretch near Ashford Woods has barely any lights, no houses, just trees packed tight on both sides, and the occasional reflective sign warning about deer crossings. I remember gripping the steering wheel harder than usual. Radio turned low, trying not to rush. About 2 miles from my turnoff, I saw a car on the side of the road. Its hazard lights blinked slowly, orange against the white snow, half sunk into a shallow ditch. The driver's side door was open. A man stood near it, waving both arms overhead. I slowed down. My first instinct was to keep going. That road is notorious for accidents in winter, and cell service drops in patches. But it was Christmas Eve. The road was empty, and he looked older and cold. I rolled down my passenger window just a few inches. He jogged over, breath puffing out in quick clouds. Mid-50s, scruffy beard, heavy jacket that didn't look warm enough. He kept glancing back toward the trees, like he was worried about something. "My phone's dead," he said. "I slid off the road. I just need to get into town." His voice shook, but not just from the cold. There was something else in it. Urgency, maybe. Or frustration. I told him I could call a tow truck for him, that I'd stay nearby with my hazards on until they came. That's when his expression changed. He stopped shivering, his shoulders squared, his voice dropped. "No," he said. "I need you to let me in." The way he said it made my stomach tighten. I started rolling up the window. He stepped closer, too close, and put his hand on my side mirror. "Hey," he said, louder now. "It's freezing. Just let me in. I won't take long." I hit the lock button out of reflex. The door locked shut. He said something else then. I couldn't hear it over the blood rushing in my ears, but his mouth was moving fast, angry. His grip tightened on the mirror. I floored it, but careful not to skid off myself. The mirror snapped back against the door as I pulled away, and I didn't look back. I didn't slow down until I reached the main road, heart hammering like I'd run a mile. I told myself I was overreacting, that he was probably just desperate, that I'd feel guilty about it later, but the guilt never came. About 15 minutes later, I turned onto the gravel road that led to my house. No streetlights, just my headlights cutting through the snow. My place sat deep in the woods, set back from the road, surrounded by trees on all sides. When I pulled into the driveway, my headlights caught something odd. Footprints. Fresh ones. They started near the tree line and led straight toward my back door. I just sat there, engine running, staring at them. They weren't mine. I'd driven straight home without stopping, and they were too large to be animal tracks. They were human. I backed out of the driveway and drove to my neighbor's house, half a mile down the road. He was home, thankfully, and came back with me, flashlight in hand. By the time we reached my place, the snow had already started filling the tracks in, blurring the edges, erasing details. We checked the doors. Everything was locked. No signs of forced entry. He said it was probably nothing. Someone cutting through the woods, a hunter, a coincidence. I nodded and thanked him. I didn't argue, but I didn't sleep that night either. The next morning, I drove back past the crash site. The car was gone. No skid marks, no broken glass, no signs anyone had been there at all. I never reported it. I never told the police. I didn't even tell my family. Sometimes, even years later, I still think about that man standing in the snow. I wonder if his car was really stuck, if he really needed help, or if it was just bait. And I wonder how long he'd been watching that road, waiting for someone to stop. He said he knew my dad. I was 12 when it happened. Christmas Eve, 2007. My parents were upstairs wrapping last-minute gifts, and I was in the basement sneaking cookies from the pantry when I could and watching Elf with the volume down low so they wouldn't hear me. It was snowing hard outside, the kind of soft, heavy snow that makes the whole house feel insulated, safe. Around 9 p.m., I heard the doorbell. Just one chime. I figured one of my parents would answer it, but after a few seconds, nothing happened. No footsteps, no voices. Then it rang again. Longer this time. I paused the movie and crept up the basement stairs. Our front hallway was dim, just lit by the glow of the Christmas tree in the living room. I remember the way the red and green lights flickered across the walls. It felt warm, familiar, but something about the silence behind the door made me nervous. I peeked through the front curtain, careful not to move it too much. A man stood on our porch, mid-30s maybe, wearing a long black coat and a scarf. His hair was neat, short. He looked like someone you'd see coming out of a church service or standing in line at the bank. Totally ordinary. But he didn't knock. He just stood there, holding something in one hand, a small wrapped box. When he saw me looking, he smiled. Not a big smile, just a small, polite wave, like he was trying to be non-threatening. I don't know why I opened the door. I didn't open it all the way though, just cracked it a few inches, with the chain still on. "Hi there," he said. "Is your dad home? I used to work with him a while back. Just wanted to drop this off." He held up the gift. Something about his tone was casual, almost rehearsed, like he was used to saying it. I told him to wait, and I proceeded to shut the door. I walked upstairs and found my dad on the floor of the guest room, wrapping a fishing rod. I told him someone was at the door, a guy who said he used to work with him. My dad paused, confused. "Who?" "No idea. He said he brought something." Dad stood up, still holding a roll of tape. "We're not expecting anyone tonight." He followed me downstairs, but by the time we opened the door again, the man was gone. The only thing left was the box, sitting on the welcome mat. No car in the driveway, no footprints leading back down the road, just the box. My dad picked it up carefully. It didn't feel heavy. We brought it inside and set it on the dining table. There was no tag, no name. He unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a plain cardboard lid, and underneath that, just a piece of lined notebook paper. One sentence, written in all caps, in thick black ink. "Lock the doors earlier next year." That's it. We both stared at it for a long time. My dad didn't say anything, just folded the note and slid it into a drawer. Then he picked up the phone and called the police. They showed up about 20 minutes later. They found footprints in the snow leading up from the road, but they stopped abruptly near our front steps. No tire tracks. No neighbors saw a vehicle. One officer joked maybe the guy walked from town. Except town was over 3 miles away, and it was 18 degrees out. We never figured out who he was. Dad filed a report, and we got motion lights installed the next week. The officer said it was probably a prank. Holiday weirdos, he called them. But I don't think it was a prank. Something about the way that man smiled, like he already knew I'd opened the door. I didn't sleep much that night, or the next one. Now, even years later, every Christmas Eve, my dad triple checks the locks before sunset, and I still remember the way that note looked, creased down the center, written like a warning. If it was a joke, it wasn't funny, and if it wasn't a joke, I think he'll come back someday. This is Mr. H. You're listening to Masked Horror.